October 16, 1946, Nuremberg Prison, Germany. In the cold pre-dawn darkness, a gymnasium has been transformed into an execution chamber. 3 gallows stand ready. Field Marshal Wilhelm Keitel, once one of the most powerful military figures in Nazi Germany, is about to face the ultimate judgment for crimes that shocked the conscience of humanity. But before we reveal the horrifying details of his final moments, hit that subscribe button right now and smash the notification bell. Here at Fleek of History, we bring you the raw, unfiltered truth about the darkest chapters of human history. Don't miss a single episode. Subscribe now and join our community of truth seekers who refuse to let history be forgotten. The making of Hitler's yes man. Wilhelm Keitel entered the world on September 22, 1882, in the small village of Helmscherode in the German Empire. Tragedy struck early when his mother died from childbed fever in 1889, leaving young Wilhelm, just 6 years old, without maternal guidance. His younger brother Baudouin would later become an infantry general, making the Keitel name synonymous with German military power. Initially destined to manage his father's substantial land holdings, Wilhelm's path changed dramatically when his father refused to retire. In 1901, the 19-year-old Keitel joined the Prussian Army as an artillery officer, beginning a military career that would ultimately lead to infamy. In April 1909, Keitel married Lisa Fontaine, daughter of a wealthy landowner whose family owned the Wilful Brewery, temporarily Europe's largest cooperative brewery. The marriage produced 6 children, though one would die young, foreshadowing the tragedy that would consume the entire family. Forged in the fires of the Great War, when the First World War erupted on July 28, 1914, Keitel served on the Western Front as a battery commander and staff officer. In Flanders, a shrapnel grenade nearly ended his life in 1914, leaving him seriously wounded. But Keitel survived, and after recovering, his exceptional organizational abilities caught the attention of his superiors. By spring 1915, he was serving in the Army General Staff, a position that would define his future. The armistice signed on November 11, 1918, in the Compiègne forest in France, brought the Great War to its devastating conclusion. 10 million soldiers lay dead. The Treaty of Versailles imposed crushing penalties on Germany, loss of 13% of its territories, massive reparation payments, and the restriction of the Reichswehr to just 100,000 men. Germany felt humiliated, betrayed, and desperate for revenge. Keitel was retained in the newly created Reichswehr and played a crucial role organizing the paramilitary Freikorps units. These veteran-filled militias, ostensibly formed to fight communist revolutionaries, actually despised the new Weimar Republic and participated in assassinating its supporters. Architect of secret rearmament by 1924, Keitel had transferred to the Ministry of the Reichswehr in Berlin as a colonel in the Truppenamt, an agency secretly concealing the forbidden German general staff. Keitel began planning Germany's illegal rearmament in direct violation of the Treaty of Versailles. His father's death created a crossroads. Would Keitel return to farming? His wife Lisa had other ideas. She wanted to be an officer's wife, not a farmer's. Keitel stayed in uniform, a decision that would cost millions of lives. When Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party seized power in January 1933, Keitel became instrumental in the massive, initially covert rearmament program. Using front organizations like glider clubs for pilot training and sporting clubs for combat instruction, Germany prepared for war. Hitler's perfect servant in 1935, Keitel was appointed head of the Armed Forces Office at the Reich Ministry of War, overseeing the Army, Navy, and Air Force. When the ministry was abolished in 1938, Hitler consolidated power as commander-in-chief, creating the German Armed Forces High Command, with Keitel as chief, with the rank of Reich Minister. He was now the second most powerful figure in the military hierarchy, directly below the Führer himself. But Keitel's peers were shocked. They knew he wasn't qualified for such responsibility. Behind his back they called him names: blindingly loyal toady, stupid follower of Hitler, and most cruelly Laketel, meaning lackey Keitel. Others dubbed him the nodding donkey, because he mindlessly agreed with everything Hitler demanded. One officer famously remarked that Keitel had a sergeant's mind inside a field marshal's body. Hitler didn't care about Keitel's limited intellect or nervous disposition. The Führer valued him for one quality above all others: absolute, unquestioning obedience. Hitler once said Keitel was as loyal as a dog. That dog-like devotion made Keitel perfect for Hitler's purposes. He would sign any order, no matter how criminal. Orchestrating Austria's conquest in early 1938, Hitler set his sights on Austria. When Austrian Chancellor Kurt Schuschnigg announced a referendum on maintaining Austrian sovereignty versus union with Germany, Hitler threatened invasion. Keitel conducted military maneuvers near the Austrian border, making invasion appear imminent. Schuschnigg resigned on March 11th. German troops entered Austria on March 12, 1938, and Austria was absorbed into Germany the following day. Thousands cheered Hitler's arrival. For his role in this Anschluss, Nazi Germany's first act of territorial aggression, Keitel received the Anschluss Medal. Poland, where mass murder became policy, September 1st, 1939, Germany invaded Poland, igniting World War II. Keitel was deeply involved in planning the invasion and fully understood its criminal nature. Mass arrests, population transfers, and mass murders had been meticulously planned months in advance. Ethnic cleansing would be conducted systematically against the Polish people. On September 7, 1939, Reinhard Heydrich declared that all Polish nobles, clergy, and Jews were to be murdered. On September 12th, Keitel added Poland's intelligentsia to the death list. Between fall 1939 and spring 1940, approximately 60,000 former government officials, military officers, landowners, clergy, scientists, teachers, lawyers, and doctors were executed in the so-called intelligentsia action, including over 1,000 prisoners of war. When officers complained about these atrocities, Keitel ignored them until commanders and soldiers became morally numb to the horrors they witnessed. As a reward for his loyalty, Keitel received a bonus of 100,000 Reichsmarks. France falls. Keitel rises on May 10, 1940. Germany invaded France, Belgium, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands. Within 6 weeks, these nations were conquered. After defeating France, Keitel proclaimed Hitler the greatest warlord of all time. To humiliate France further, Hitler demanded the armistice be signed in the same railcar where Germany had signed the 1918 armistice ending World War I. The railcar was removed from its museum and brought to Compiègne Forest, transforming Germany's 1918 humiliation into the Third Reich's symbolic victory site. On June 22, 1940, General Keitel signed for Germany and General Hunziker for France. Shortly afterward, Keitel was promoted to Field Marshal. Hermann Göring, head of the Luftwaffe, sneered that Keitel had a sergeant's mind inside a field marshal's body. Criminal orders, blueprint for genocide, from April 1941 onward. Keitel issued and signed a series of criminal orders allowing the execution of Jews, civilians, and non-combatants for any reason. Those carrying out murders were exempted from court-martial or later prosecution for war crimes. Keitel was instrumental in planning Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union. When Hitler's chief economic strategist Georg Thomas presented a study detailing serious logistical problems, different railway gauges, insufficient transport vehicle tires, and only 2 months of fuel and petrol, Keitel bluntly dismissed the concerns, declaring Hitler would not want to see it. Operation Barbarossa began on June 22, 1941. In September, Keitel issued orders demanding unusual severity to stamp out resistance, declaring that for every German soldier lost, 50 to 100 communists should be executed. In October 1942, Keitel signed the infamous Commando Order, authorizing the killing of enemy special operations troops without trial, even when captured in uniform or attempting to surrender. He also drafted the Night and Fog Decree, allowing German authorities to abduct suspected resistance members under cover of darkness, making them vanish without a trace. Applied primarily in Belgium, France, Luxembourg, Norway, Denmark, and the Netherlands, German authorities arrested approximately 7,000 individuals under this decree. After interrogation and frequent torture, survivors were taken to concentration camps like Gross Rosen and Natzweiler Struthof. The decree was designed to terrorize populations into submission by denying families any knowledge of their loved ones' whereabouts or fate. or fate. Keitel also authorized reprisals against the families of Allied volunteers the war touched. Keitel personally, when his youngest son Hans-Georg was killed in July 1941 during the German attack on the Soviet Union, an attack Keitel had helped plan. His eldest son, Karl-Heinz, became a Soviet prisoner of war. The failed assassination and brutal revenge on July 20, 1944, Klaus von Stauffenberg and fellow conspirators attempted to assassinate Hitler. After the bomb exploded, Keitel personally led the wounded Hitler out of the room. Hitler ordered a massive hunt for conspirators that continued for months. More than 7,000 people were arrested, and 4,180 were executed, often on the flimsiest evidence. Keitel not only sat on the Army Court of Honor that handed over many officers, but on Hitler's orders, sent 2 generals to Field Marshal Erwin Rommel, the legendary Desert Fox. They offered Rommel a choice, suicide or court-martial. To protect his family, Rommel chose suicide by cyanide pill. He received a state funeral, and authorities announced he had died from injuries sustained when his staff car was strafed in Normandy. Germany's collapse and final surrender. Adolf Hitler committed suicide on April 30, 1945. On May 7, 1945, in Reims, France, Alfred Jodl signed Germany's unconditional surrender, but the Soviet High Command rejected the Reims surrender. They insisted that not Jodl, but Wilhelm Keitel, Supreme Commander of all German forces, must personally sign the document. One reason was fear of a new stab-in-the-back myth, like the one after World War I, which falsely claimed the German army hadn't lost on the battlefield, but was betrayed by Jews and communists on the home front. On the night of May 8, 1945, in Berlin, Wilhelm Keitel signed the definitive German instrument of surrender, legally ending World War II in Europe. Nuremberg, where evil faced justice, finally caught up with Keitel when Allied forces arrested him and brought him before the International Military Tribunal at Nuremberg. He was convicted on all 4 counts: conspiracy to commit crimes against peace, planning, initiating and waging wars of aggression, war crimes and crimes against humanity. During his trial, Keitel admitted knowing many of Hitler's orders were illegal, but insisted he had merely followed them, and that responsibility belonged to Hitler. Regarding the atrocities, he claimed they had developed one from the other, step by step, and without any foreknowledge of the consequences, destiny took its tragic course. He even claimed he would suffer more agony of conscience and self-reproach in his cell than anybody would ever know. Prison psychiatrist G.M. Gilbert was unimpressed, stating Keitel had no more backbone than a jellyfish. On October 1, 1946, the International Military Tribunal found Wilhelm Keitel guilty on all 4 counts and sentenced him to death by hanging. His request for military execution by firing squad was denied. His acts were criminal, not military. The agonizing final hours, October 16, 1946, the day of execution, arrived. Keitel told prison chaplain Henry F. Gericke, "You have helped me more than you know. May Christ, my Savior, stand by me all the way. I shall need him so much." He received communion. Hermann Göring, originally scheduled to be first to hang, had cheated the gallows by swallowing cyanide hidden in a copper cartridge shell just hours earlier. Joachim von Ribbentrop, Nazi Germany's foreign minister, took Göring's place as first to the scaffold at 1:30 a.m. At 1:44 a.m., Wilhelm Keitel was brought to the gallows. The executioner was U.S. Army Master Sergeant John C. Woods, who had no documented pre-war experience as a hangman, but had lied his way into the job. Keitel's last words echoed through the gymnasium. "I call on God Almighty to have mercy on the German people. More than 2 million German soldiers went to their death for the fatherland before me. I follow now my sons, all for Germany. Death by strangulation, 24. Minutes of agony. What happened next was horrifying. The trapdoor was too small, causing Keitel to suffer painful head injuries as he dropped through. Worse still, Woods used the standard drop method instead of the long drop favored by British executioners. The drop was insufficient to snap Keitel's neck. Instead of dying quickly from a broken neck, Wilhelm Keitel strangled to death slowly. His body convulsed violently for 24 minutes before death finally released him. Some reports suggest the agonizing death took even longer. He was 64 years old. Many believe Woods was deliberately incompetent to make the Nazi war criminals suffer. All 10 men executed that day died agonizing deaths by strangulation rather than quick deaths from broken necks. Woods himself later declared, "I hanged those 10 Nazis, and I am proud of it." After Keitel's execution, his corpse was cremated at a Munich crematorium, and his ashes were scattered in the river Isar. There were no tears shed for Wilhelm Keitel. Legacy of a war criminal, Wilhelm Keitel's story is a chilling reminder of the danger of blind obedience. This man, who signed orders authorizing the murder of millions, who enabled the Holocaust, who turned warfare into systematic genocide, claimed he was merely following orders. His defense was rejected at Nuremberg, establishing the principle that superior orders is no excuse for crimes against humanity. The Nuremberg trials became the first of many war crimes prosecutions after World War II, sending an unmistakable message to war criminals and dictators everywhere: you will be held accountable. The trials assembled irrefutable evidence of Nazi crimes and provided a history lesson to the world. Keitel's execution, though brutal, represented justice for the millions who suffered and died because of orders he signed. His colleagues' nicknames for him: the Nodding Donkey, Keitel, Hitler's loyal dog, captured the essence of a man who surrendered his moral compass for power and proximity to a dictator. If you found this episode powerful and eye-opening, then you need to subscribe to Fleek of History right now. Hit that subscribe button, ring the notification bell, and give this video a thumbs up. Share it with everyone who needs to understand that history must never repeat itself. Drop a comment below telling us what historical topic you want us to cover next. Remember, those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. Don't be part of that tragedy. Subscribe now and join the Fleek of History family. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and never stop seeking the truth. Seeking the truth.